Thermoregulation in the black-tailed jackrabbit. Thermoregulation is the process of maintaining a stable internal temperature as the outside temperature changes. Animals use a feedback regulation system that allows the exit of excess heat or the production of heat required to keep a constant temperature. It is important for an animal to maintain a constant temperature as enzymes work most efficiently for mammals between 35 to 40 degrees. If the internal temperature for the enzymes to work in becomes colder or hotter than this, the enzymes will stop functioning properly, thus resulting in a cease of thousands of metabolic processes which are required to be happening at all times to keep the animal alive. There are 5 different species of jackrabbits, all found in Central and North America. On the contrary to their deceiving name, jackrabbits are actually hares. Hares tend to be larger than rabbits, with significantly longer ears. The species I will be focusing on is the black-tailed jackrabbit. This hare is the only one of its species to be found all year round in the harsh American deserts. Thermoregulation is extremely important to the black-tailed jackrabbit's survival in an environment that can range from -10 degrees to 35 degrees in a matter of hours. Black-tailed jackrabbits use a range of physiological adaptations to keep their internal temperature within a stable range, whilst the external temperature fluctuates so rapidly. One of the most important structural adaptations of the jackrabbit is its ears. They stand approximately 8 inches tall, making up 1/4 of the hare's body length, and are shaped in a cylinder form to increase maximum surface area. These massive ears allow jackrabbits to display a phenomena called heterothermy. This allows variation in a mammal's body along temperature scales. In the jackrabbit's case, its core body, so its torso, organs, and head, will remain a favorable temperature, whilst its ears can vary significantly from this temperature. This is a physiological adaptation and it's an advantage to the black-tailed jackrabbit when its environment is cold or hot. On hot days in the desert, the hare cools off through its ears. Like many animals that inhabit the desert, they are known as evaporators. The fur on the ear has adapted in such a way that the layer of skin and fur is extremely thin, allowing the vascular system to be close to the large surface area of the ears on both sides. Because the ears have such a thin fur and fat layer compared to the rest of the body, the ears are the first to detect any change in temperature. As the temperature increases, the input, the nerves in the ears act as the receptors. Nerves are made up of long cells called neurons, which have the ability to carry electrical charges along the membrane of cells to the brain very quickly. The part of the brain any temperature deficit signal travels to is the hypothalamus. This is the controller. The hypothalamus becomes aware the temperature is rising, and in order to maintain a stable internal environment for the jackrabbit's enzymes and bodily functions to operate, transmits a signal via nerves again to the blood vessels in the jackrabbit's ears, which are the effectors. If the temperature is too hot, the blood vessels in the ears will dilate, allowing the heat from the warm blood to be closer to the surface area and evaporate off the ears. This is the output. This allows the jackrabbit to lose the extra heat and keep its core temperature at a constant. Jackrabbits must lose at least 4% of its body mass by evaporation per hour during the day to thermoregulate. If the jackrabbit is too cold, there are 2 ways it can keep its internal temperature warm using its ears dependent on the weather. At night, when temperature can drop to -10 degrees, jackrabbits, using the same input receptor controller system, will constrict the blood vessels in their ears. This means the warm blood is not flowing close to the surface area, so all the body heat is conserved. None of it is lost to the colder outside air. Jackrabbits use this method when the outside air is 10 to 15 degrees lower than its core body temperature. The method the hares use for warming up after the long cold nights is actually the same method they use for cooling down. When the sun rises, the jackrabbits dilate their blood vessels in the ears again. They utilize the large surface area of the ears, which acts as a solar device. The solar radiation heats up the blood passing through the vessels. which is easy as the vessels are close to the surface. The warm blood then travels around the rabbit's body and heats up its core temperature back to a favorable degree. There is little or no water in their niche. The jackrabbit obtains most of its water from its diet of water-retaining green plants. This includes cactus, sagebush, and clover. Jackrabbits require a plant's water weight to be at least 5 times its dry weight in order to meet daily water intake requirements. Jackrabbits have developed extremely long small intestines to allow them to absorb as much water and energy and nutrients from their food as possible. As the food travels through the small intestines, nutrients and minerals are absorbed which are necessary for the rabbit to survive. A behavioral adaptation the hares display is that they eat their own droppings in order to ensure that absolutely all nutrients are absorbed. Unlike most animals, jackrabbits produce 2 types of pellets, one of which are called cecotropes, and these pellets are redigested. Cecotropes are produced in a portion of the animal's digestive tract called the cecum. Bacteria and fungi in the hare's cecum are the source of essential nutrients the jackrabbits cannot produce but need and are acquired as a result of the second digestion. This well-adapted digestive system resulting in high production of nutrients is important as the high concentration of nutrients that are constantly being produced within the hare contribute to the jackrabbit's rapid metabolism rate. The fast metabolism is important during the nights when temperature plummets and the jackrabbits must try to keep their internal system temperature constant. A product of mitochondria couple production is not only ATP, but also heat. The faster metabolism means more heat is produced during this process, thus keeping the rabbit warm during the night. In winter nights, when it gets even colder in the desert, and ambient temperature is far below the zone of thermoneutrality for long periods of time, the jackrabbit's metabolism increases for the cold season from 142 calories per kilo per day to 172 calories per kilo per day. During the hot days, the heat produced to the fast metabolism is lost via evaporation from the airs. A behavioral adaptation the hares use to aid in thermoregulation is staying out of the sun during the hot days. Jackrabbits forage during dawn, the early hours of the morning when the sun has not yet risen. During the hottest part of the day, the hares crouch in a shaded depression in the desert ground, which is often in the shade of a bush. The bottom of the hole has a much lower temperature than the hot desert wind and the heat radiation from the sun passing over the jackrabbit's head. Here I found a diagram and an explanation that explains the benefits of the hare taking shelter in such a depression during the day. From its sheltered position, the jackrabbit's large radiator-like ears can be exposed not directly to the sun, but to a clear blue sky. The radiation temperature of the north sky at midday is only 13 degrees, so if the ears, which are richly vascularized, have a temperature of 38 degrees and a surface area of 400 centimeters squared, and they are directed towards the sky, they can radiate about 13 kilojoules per hour, which is about half of the animal's metabolic heat production. A disease that black-tailed jackrabbits are prone to is the Rocky Mountain spotted fever. A symptom of this disease is a high temperature, also known as a fever. Jackrabbits catch the disease via the Rocky Mountain wood tick, which acts as a host to the pathogen. Commonly, an infected female tick will lay her eggs in the fur on the hare. The eggs are also infected with the disease due to a process during the pregnancy called transovarial transmission, where the mother tick transmits the pathogen to her eggs. When the ticks are born, they bite the jackrabbit's skin to feed and pass on the infection. The pathogen infects the cell's lining blood vessels. This causes a malfunction in the jackrabbit's thermoregulation system, as the blood vessels act as the effectors in the system. So, as the external temperature rises, the input, the nerves, which are the receptors, carry the message to the hypothalamus, the controller, which tells the blood vessels to dilate so the heat can be lost through evaporation, the output. However, the blood cells are infected with the pathogen, which causes them to not be able to carry out their function in the thermoregulation process. So, the blood cells do not dilate. This means the extra heat is not lost through evaporation, as there is no result of the effector's action, thus no output. Thus, the hare's internal temperature begins to rise, resulting in a fever. This can ultimately result in the death of the jackrabbit, as when the internal temperature reaches a height of 40 degrees, the enzymes will stop working efficiently or even stop working at all, resulting in a cease of thousands of metabolic processes that are required to keep the jackrabbit alive.